Hey everyone, this is a chronology of the life of Max Shachtman from Peter Drucker's Max Shachtman and His Left. So here we go. 1904, Shachtman born in Warsaw. 1905, moves with his mother to join his father in New York. 1916 to 1920, attends DeWitt Clinton High School. 1917, United States enters First World War, Bolsheviks take power in Russia. 1918, Civil War begins in Russia, armistice ends First World War. 1919, Communist International founded in Moscow, Socialist Party splits in the United States, communist groups formed, Allies impose Versailles Peace Treaty on Germany. 1919 to 1920, many U.S. radicals rounded up, jailed, deported. 1920, Shachtman enrolls in City College, withdraws because of illness. Sacco and Vanzetti tried and convicted of murder. 1921, Civil War ends in Russia with defeat of Kronstadt uprising. God, that fucking pisses me off. The Civil War ended before the putting down of the Kronstadt uprising. Shachtman drops out of City College again, joins Workers' Party, parenthesis, New Legal Communist Party, end parenthesis. 1923, moves to Chicago at Abern's request to edit Young Worker. Joins Foster Cannon fight against Ruthenberg Lovestone. Meets Billy Ramloff, Shachtman's first wife. Trotsky defeated in faction fight in USSR. Communist uprising fails in Germany. Al Glotzer joins Young Workers' League. 1924, Lenin dies. Glotzer meets Shachtman. Communist International ends communist support for La Follette. 1925, International turns U.S. Communist Party over to Ruthenberg. Shachtman and Cannon break with Foster Group. Shachtman visits Moscow for first time. 1926, becomes labor defender editor. British general strike fails. 1926 to 27, Trotsky relaunches fight in USSR, is defeated and expelled. Shachtman's second visit to Moscow. 1927, Shachtman moves to back to New York with communist headquarters. Chiang Kai-shek massacres Chinese communists in Shanghai. Sacco and Vanzetti executed. Ruthenberg dies. Lovestone takes over party. 1928. At Moscow Congress, Cannon becomes secret Trotsky supporter. Cannon returns to New York and wins over Shachtman and Abern. All three expelled from Communist Party, published Militant. 1929. Trotsky deported from USSR to Turkey. Trotsky's Communist League of America founded. Stalin starts collectivizing Soviet agriculture. Communist International turns left, breaks with Lovestone. Worldwide depression begins. 1930. Shachtman travels to Turkey and meets Trotsky. Glotzer comes to New York to edit Militant. 1931. Shachtman founds Pioneer Publishers. 1931. Republican Revolution in Spain. 1931 to 32, Shachtman travels to Britain, France, and Spain. 1931 to 1933, Shachtman, Abert, and Glotzer fight inside CLA against Cannon. 1933, Hitler takes power in Germany. Roosevelt launches, quote, First New Deal, end quote. Trotsky declares need for Fourth International. Shachtman travels with Trotsky from Turkey to France. Glotzer moves back to Chicago with Edith Harvey. 1934, Dollfuss crushes socialists in Vienna. Edith Harvey leaves Glotzer and moves to New York. Trotsky moves from France to Norway. New International founded with Shachtman as editor. Communist Party and Mustites lead San Francisco and Toledo general strikes. Shachtman edits Minneapolis General Strike newspaper. Trotskyists in the United States merge with Mustites to form Workers' Party. Sergei Kirov killed in Leningrad. 1935, Roosevelt's, quote, second New Deal, end quote, parenthesis, Wagner Act, Social Security, end parenthesis. CIO founded. Communist International calls for popular fronts. 1936, Socialist Party's right wing, parenthesis, quote, old guard, end quote, end parenthesis, leaves. Shachtman and Cannon convince Workers' Party to join Socialist Party. Popular Front wins French elections. Civil War breaks out in Spain. Shachtman visits Trotsky in Norway. Works with Trotsky to expose Moscow trials. Trotsky calls for violent revolution in USSR. 1937. Shachtman greets Trotsky on his arrival in Mexico. Spanish Republic crushes anarchists and Marxists in Barcelona. Sit-down strikes in Detroit, Flint, and Pontiac auto plants. Thomas withdraws in favor of LaGuardia in New York. Shachtman moves in with Edith Harvey, his second wife. 1937 to 1938, Trotsky is expelled from Socialist Party, forms Socialist Workers' Party. Carter and Burnham call USSR, quote, bureaucratic collectivist, end quote. 1938, Trotsky's son Sadov dies under suspicious circumstances in Paris. Shachtman discusses new Socialist Workers' Party course with Trotsky in Mexico. Presides over Fourth International's founding Congress. Britain and France capitulate to Hitler at Munich. 1939, Shachtman and Edith Harvey's son Michael born. Germany and USSR invade Poland. Starting Second World War. Shachtman and others in Socialist Workers' Party reject, quote, defense, end quote, of USSR. USSR invades Finland. Again, questionable analysis there. To my understanding, Shachtman and the Socialist Workers' Party don't reject defense of USSR as such, but reject unconditional defense of the USSR, which I think is a very big difference. 1940, Shachtman's faction expelled from Socialist Workers' Party forms Workers' Party. German army overruns France, which surrenders. Trotsky murdered in Mexico City. Shachtman decides USSR is, quote, bureaucratic collectivist, end quote. 1941, Germany invades USSR, begins mass murder of Jews. Shachtman refuses to support USSR in war. Shachtman's mother dies. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor, United States enters World War. 1942, United States and Britain invade North Africa. 1942 to 43, USSR defeats Germans at Stalingrad. 1943, United States and Britain invade Italy. Mussolini falls. Resistance forces grow in occupied Europe. Shachtman predicts domination of Eastern Europe. 1944, United States and Britain invade France. Auto workers rank and file caucus fight no strike pledge. 1944 to 45, Soviet Union occupies Eastern Europe. Yugoslav communists seize power. 1945, Germany defeated and occupied. Labour Party wins British elections. United States drops atom bomb on Japan, which surrenders. 1945 to 46, wave of, quote, pressure valve, end quote, strikes, led by General Motors strike. Socialist Workers' Party minority pushes unsuccessfully for Socialist Workers' Party unity. 1946, Reuther becomes United Auto Workers president. Shachtman calls for, quote, all-inclusive revolutionary party, end quote. Backs Mikołajczyk in Poland. 1947, urges Trotskyists in Europe to join socialist parties. Michel Baptiste launches Socialist Workers' Party unity talks, which fail. Truman pledges to, quote, contain, end quote, communism in Greece. Proposes Marshall Plan aid to Western Europe. Taft-Hartley Act passed. Shachtman backs Reuther over Addis in United Auto Workers. Glotzer moves from New York to Akron, then Los Angeles. Draper moves from Los Angeles to New York. 1948, communist coup in Czechoslovakia completes division of Europe. Shachtman attends Fourth International's Second Congress. Fights Geltman's support for Marshall Plan. Workers' Party breaks with Fourth International. Tito's Yugoslavia breaks with Stalin. Erber and Goldman quit Workers' Party. Communists back Wallace for president against Truman. Shachtman's father dies. 1949. Mao's communists win civil war in China. Workers' Party changes name to Independent Socialist League. Haskell and Benson move to New York. Shachtman decides peaceful legal path to socialism is possible. Backs CIO's expulsion of left-wing unions. Pushes to support labor candidates in Democratic Party. 1950-53, Korean War. 1951, controversy over, quote, defeatism, end quote, in Independent Socialist League. Shachtman leaves Edith Harvey for Yetta Barsh, his third wife. Edith and Michael move to California. Shachtman has first heart attack. In 1952, Irving Howe and Geltman quit Independent Socialist League. 1953, Stalin dies. Workers revolt in East Germany. 1953-54, YPSL breaks with Socialists and merges with Independent Socialist League Youth Group. 1954, Geneva Accords partition Vietnam. Irving Howe and Geltman found dissent. Shachtman wins Independent Socialist League to idea of backing labor Democrats. Shachtman and Barsh moved to Floral Park on Long Island, New York. 1955, Montgomery bus boycott begins civil rights movement. 1956, Khrushchev denounces Stalin's crimes. 1956, Soviet tanks crush Hungarian Revolution. 1956, crisis in U.S. Communist Party. 1957, Shachtman rejects idea of separate revolutionary groups. 1958, Independent Socialist League joins Socialist Party. 1959, Castro's July 26 movement takes power in Cuba. 1960, Shachtman leads Socialist Party, quote, realignment tendency, end quote. 1961, Cuban exiles backed by CIA invade Cuba at Bay of Pigs. Shachtman refuses to condemn invasion, breaks with Hal Draper. 1962, faction fight tears YPSL apart. SDS clashes with Harrington over Port Huron statement. 1963, Rustin organizes March on Washington for civil rights. 1964, Draper ends activity in Socialist Party. Free speech movement in Berkeley. Shachtman backs Johnson for president. 1965, YPSL reconstitutes control. Shachtman baptizes freedom budget. Johnson escalates U.S. troop presence in Vietnam. SDS calls first big anti-war march. 1968, police riot and beat protesters at Chicago Democratic Convention. Shachtman backs Humphrey for president. 1970, Shachtman refuses to back U.S. withdrawal from Vietnam. Breaks with Harrington and Howe. 1971, praises Hillquit and Roosevelt. 1972, refuses to back McGovern against Nixon. Socialist Party splits. Shachtman dies in Floral Park from a heart attack. That's the end of the chronology of Max Shachtman's life from Peter Drucker's Max Shachtman and His Left, A Socialist Odyssey Through the, quote, American Century, end quote. Thanks for listening.